Welcome to Popcorn Bucket List, the show where we talk about movies and kind of just give our best recommendations of what we think you should go and check out in the movie theaters. My name is Nick Dahlhoff. I'm the host of this show. Next to me is my good friend, movie aficionado, cool guy all around, Mr. Ryan Meyerberg. Everything.
We also
everything,
talk about bad movies too.
We do cover
Not
some of the
just the
bad
good
movies. If you're into that sort of thing, some people are. I know sometimes I am. A little guilty pleasure bad movie.
Yep.
But yeah, it's good to be back. We shot a little pilot episode last year. Haven't really got back around to it, so it's good to be talking movies again with you, bud.
Yeah, I'm excited. Should be a good year.
Oh yeah. So first things first, we're going to talk a little bit about this past summer's movie. We're going to recap. Summer is always a big time for the movie season. We're going to go over some of the biggest financial winners, and then we're also going to go over some of the best critically acclaimed movies, both audience and critics alike. And we're going to kind of see what is kind of the best run of the summer. And we're going to give our number one recommendations of what we think you should check out this summer. So let's get right into the box office, top 10 box office. You'll see on the screen the first 5 there. Let's look at number 10, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. Some people would say this one kind of underperformed, yet it still made that top 10 list.
It still made a lot of money, but I agree with people, it kind of underperformed. I didn't think it was that great of a movie. It was okay. Another take, a different take on Godzilla. I think they focused a lot more on the people, and I wanted more of a monster movie. I wanted more of a creature movie, but it was all right.
I like to call that the Transformers effect, when you're focusing on the wrong
things,
wrong species there. We want to see the fighting robots, not so much Mark Wahlberg and Shia LaBeouf. Next up on the box office list, coming in at number 9, I know you're happy about this one, Ryan, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you adjust for inflation, this is actually the 4th highest grossing Quentin Tarantino movie.
Oh, really?
So far. I believe number 1 was Pulp Fiction. No real surprise there.
Yep.
But in his top half, it's good to see mainstream audiences latching onto Tarantino.
I agree. Tarantino's been one of those directors that just everything he does, I love it. All his movies are great. Even some of the lesser known things, like I think it was The Rock. He helped. Not the actor The Rock, the movie The Rock.
Yeah.
He's helped with some weird producing or helping with the script on things, and when I hear that, it's always like, oh, I'm gonna go check that out just to see if I can get a little residue. I can see the residue of Quentin Tarantino touching that. So. Great movie. Absolutely loved it.
And obviously with the Tarantino movie, you do have that little bit of Oscar buzz no matter what he touches. So it's always interesting. The past few summers, we've seen this more and more. There's always been at least 1 or 2 summer movies that you never know could just have that little bit of Oscar buzz.
Yep.
We'll have to see how things kind of shake out. But good to see that one on the top 10 list. Beating that one out, though, winning the battle, so to speak, Detective Pikachu. Good to see a Pokemon movie making a comeback into the movie mainstream, I think.
Yes, and not just the animated Pokemon. This had real life real people characters and Pokemon as well. So I thought for a kind of a crossover, almost half, a little animation and real actors, I thought that it did really well. I thought.
Another movie kind of dealing with animals and their lives, The Secret Life of Pets 2 comes in next there at number 7. I'm sorry. I gotta say, this might have been my most surprised making the top 10 list.
Yep, I agree.
Going into this movie, I have no idea what this movie is about. It was one of the weirdest marketing strategies I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
There had been 10 trailers released, and yet I still had no idea what this movie was about. And yet it still made it in the top 10 list here. Obviously, you've got the kids market. This summer wasn't short of animated features, but people love their dogs and cats.
Yes, they do.
Coming up next on that top 10 list, Hobbs and Shaw. This was a late summer entry, early August, which is really at the tail end of that summer. Was expecting this to be a little bit higher, but I would say possibly the late summer entry maybe kind of brought it down a little bit.
Yep, I could see that. I mean, you have two awesome action stars, The Rock and Jason Statham. They just, whatever they seem to be doing when it's action orientated is always a crowd pleaser. So.
Yeah, continuation of the Fast and Furious franchise. Obviously, not too bad of numbers as far as domestic goes.
No,
so
not at all.
The success of the Fast and Furious continues to keep rolling on. But speaking of rolling on, we move into our top 5 here. Capping off the first of the top 5 list, John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum. I cannot say how much I'm happy that this movie not only made the top 10 list, but made it so high on the top 10 list. This action movie was inventive. The Keanu Sans really kind of, I think, got its main steam from this movie. I don't know, how much fun did you have out of it, Ryan?
I enjoyed this movie so much. I think I saw it twice. I'm a huge John Wick fan. I like him, you know. Yeah, you bring up, it's about his dog and stuff, but the action's great, the sequencing is great, and knowing that he's actually doing most, if not all, of his stunts, his gun work that he does is fantastic. And I think when actors really go through and learn the trade that they're doing, whether it's driving or anything, when they can actually perform that and make it look cool, that's just props to them. That's a lot of hard work, and you worked hard in this movie, and I'm glad it was a success.
We're seeing the same thing that I think the Mission Impossible franchise has really been hitting at too, is the whole Tom Cruise doing his own stunts thing.
Yep.
This is clearly resonating, I think, with audiences. I think the audiences go and see this more knowing that it is that actor doing these dangerous and cool things. Yep. Another little fun fact about this movie, if you look at its gross, if you take the first and second movie and combine them, it comes out to about $135 million. This one came up to about $171 million, beating its previous 2 movies. Obviously, it's earned that top 5 spot.
And I feel like they're almost like a cult movie after the first one, John Wick, because you'd see like some people had seen it and some people hadn't, and I felt like anybody I told about it, they went out and watched it. And I feel like when I asked people about John Wick 3, they had already seen it. There was no telling them about it; they'd already seen it.
Yep.
So.
Moving on to the next spot on our list, the live-action 2019 remake of Aladdin, coming in at number 4. You'll notice right away with the numbers here. Here we see a big jump from over 100 million to now breaking 300 million. This is the Disney Pantheon, essentially the Disney Empire stepping in.
Yeah.
Kind of stole a lot of the spotlight, as we'll see here in these next few entries. Just kind of looking at the next 3 here, Spider-Man Far From Home, obviously not a Disney property, Sony property technically, but MCU movie, connected to Disney, also coming in with a $300+ million growth. And then you see the next jump into the next 2 entries, Toy Story 4 coming in at $430 million, Lion King coming in at over 500. Is it safe to say this Disney Plus thing is going to work out, Ryan?
I've strong belief in it. If I had some money, I'd go in on that. That's going to be a great thing for Disney.
Watch out for this Disney company. They might just make some success here. That's kind of rounding out the top 10 of the box office here. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about what movies did well critically reviewed. This is Popcorn Bucket List.
If you love them enough to relearn math so you can teach them math, then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
A Dog's Way Home is the story of the extraordinary lengths a dog will go to in order to get back to their family. Every year, millions of dogs and cats end up in shelters and rescue groups. We found our Bella at a shelter in Tennessee. When you adopt a shelter pet, you discover they're all pure love. Adopt pure love and help a shelter pet find their way home at theshelterpetproject.org.
Welcome back to Popcorn Bucket List. Now we're moving away from the money into the tomato scores. Different kind of green if you count the
Yep.
stems on the tomatoes. But basically how, for those of you who are maybe new to the show, basically how we come up with these scores is I take the audience tomato score as well as the critics tomato score, and I average them together because I like to see that blend of audience and critics together to see kind of where the general populace kind of lies with each of these movies. So going into this top 10 list, right off the bat, we got a little bit of an obscure one coming in at number 10, Crawl, with a 78.5% score. An interesting horror concept. I think we've been seeing this a little bit more.
Yeah,
We'll talk about it a little bit more.
I think they've been doing more experimental things in the horror genre. I feel things are changing. Maybe some, I don't know whether it's part of the storytelling or just the way they're making the films. They've just been evolving a little bit, and it's nice to see that in more of a people kind of thing that's more of a stagnant genre. But it's good to see the growth, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, especially horror succeeding in the summer movie months. Again, something you don't necessarily see, but I think with such an obscure concept, it's almost got like that Sharknado vibe.
Yeah.
You almost have to release it in the summer month.
Yep.
But we're going to go away from the horror into what some could consider an opposite genre, comedy movie. Good Boys coming in at 82.5. One of the best reviewed original comedies, not only of the summer, but generally of the year. Obviously, you got a Seth Rogen project here, usually tend to succeed a little bit better than most.
Yeah, yes, I do.
But we're going to flop back to the horror genre again. A very interesting summer here at the bottom of the list for review. Ready or Not, sort of a horror comedy. Again, we're seeing kind of these more obscure horror concepts. They seem to be working as of recent.
Yeah.
It almost seems like this weird blend of comedy horror has taken into its own subgenre.
Yeah, I agree. I did see this one, and I absolutely loved it. It was fun. It was scary. You think you got the characters and the stuff and maybe some of the mental state of the characters all planned to a T. And then the ending is a surprise. And it is definitely worth a watch. If you are into the horror, scary, kind of almost, I would almost say, comedy. I mean, there are some things in there that are actually pretty funny.
Next one, this one's a surprise. Dora and the Lost City of Gold coming in at an 85.5% average tomato meter. Well, you know, it's the only live action movie based on an animated show or movie that really did well critically here.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll see here in our later part of the top 10, The Lion King, Aladdin won't be making these lists, spoiler alert. But here we've got a kids movie that seems to have succeeded.
Yeah. I also think what gives Dora a little bit of an advantage is I don't think there was any other live action or made for theater films that had Dora. Whereas like The Lion King, they've all either had previous movies or straight to DVD movies. Like they had 3 Lion Kings? 3 or 4? 3.5, they had one.
Yep.
So I think that gave Dora an edge, whereas there was nothing besides the TV show to copy from. There wasn't a whole genre of movies and Marvel or Sony kind of things. You had the TV show, and that was it.
Coming in at number 6 then, Booksmart. Olivia Wilde, who is known for comedy movies herself, her directorial debut seems like she's coming in pretty strong. Could we see more from her?
I definitely think that's a strong possibility. Looking at how the critics are scoring this, it had pretty good critic review too, a fan score, not just the critics liked it. So I think that was very good, very good.
Coming in, rocketing into the number 5 position, Rocket Man. This is the biopic on Elton John, played by Taron Egerton. You know, really doesn't surprise me that this has got a lot of performance Oscar buzz for Taron Egerton. A lot of people have been talking nowadays. Him and Elton are very good friends now. They've talked to each other. They've worked together now. Apparently, they've released a song. I think I just heard this on the radio a couple days ago. They released a song together. So clearly a good relationship there. Coming in at number 4, he was in the top 5 on the last list. He's coming back in again. John Wick, Chapter 3, coming in with an 88.5% of score, tied with Rocketman actually. So you could flip-flop either one.
Either one.
I think I did by alphabetical order. I can't remember. But yeah, still both in the top 5. Here's Johnny once again.
Yeah.
He had a good summer.
Yep, he had a great summer.
Coming in after that, Blinded by the Light. I know it has something to do with Bruce Springsteen.
Yep, yeah. A guy loves his music and wants to chase his dream. I haven't seen it, so don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that's what it's about.
90% tomato score, so definitely a good check.
Gotta watch.
Definitely one to keep an eye out for. Next two, not too big of surprises. Also, were previously on the top 5 list of our box office. They are making an appearance here again. Coming in at number 2, Spider-Man: Far From Home with a 92.5 average score from the critics and the fans. No surprise there.
No
it's
surprise.
the MCU.
Yep.
It's Marvel. They know what they're doing at this point.
Yep.
Same with our number 1 entry, coming in at a 95.5 average score from the critics and the fans, Toy Story 4. I'll be the first to admit, I heard Toy Story 4 was announced, was not happy. Thought Toy Story 3 was a good ending. I thought there's no way they can follow up with this. Without getting into spoilers, they took some risks.
Yeah.
And looks like it paid off for them here.
Looking at the score, it looks like it definitely paid off for him. That's a pretty high critic score and a very high fan score.
So those are the 2 top 10 lists of the summer, kind of recapping some of the highest winners on many spectrums. Next comes one of my favorite parts of the show, the number 1 recommend. Ryan, why don't you first give us your number 1 recommend from this summer
From
of
this
2019?
summer? My number 1 recommend has got to be the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's his 9th film, right?
It is. Officially, it's his 9th film.
Officially, it's his 9th film, yes.
He counts Kill Bill 1 and 2 together, so it is the 9th film.
I absolutely love it. If you're a movie fan and you like movies, you enjoy watching them, I think you would like this movie. It's super awesome. There's so many, just watching it, you see all kind of like his, I don't even know what to say, how to say it.
In my opinion, every shot was an intentional shot.
Yes, everything you can do, he does it intentionally. And it's fun to watch a movie through the lens of his camera, if that makes sense. Fantastic movie. Go out and watch it as soon as you can.
And for my number 1 recommended this summer, we've talked about him a lot. Keanu Sans is real in my book. John Wick, Chapter 3. This was one of the most fun times I've had in a theater in a while. There are interesting, inventive, new concepts that they brought into the action. Like you said before, you know it's Keanu, you know it's him doing it.
Yep.
You can feel every hit he takes, especially in some of those final fights. And there's no better way to immerse a fan into a theater than doing stuff like that. That's my number 1 recommend of the summer. Yours, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We highly recommend you check out these movies, especially if you're movie fans, if you want to see something new, see creative artists doing the best that they can. We're going to take another quick break here, and when we come back, we're going to preview the month of September, and we're going to look at what's coming out at each week. At the end, we're going to give our predictions. This is our hot little competition that we have going on here. You don't want to miss that. Be sure to come back here on Popcorn Bucket List.
Son, love is like the ocean. You have to tread the waters.
Dad, that's not the kind of help I needed. Jessica, will you go to prom with me?
Yes.
Thousands of teens in foster care can't wait to share their first with you.
Sometimes the things we do or say can make others feel hurt, excluded, or isolated. Everything you say and do creates an impact.
How am I supposed to save the whole world?
You can't think about saving the world. You have to think about saving one person.
Because of you, someone's entire life can change. You don't have to be a superhero to have a positive impact.
Friends?
Friends.
Welcome back to Popcorn Bucket List. We are going to now preview the month of September, kind of go over what some of the big movies are coming out each weekend, do little opinions on some of them, and then we're going to wrap it all up with our bets that we like to place.
Yep.
Both, we're going to bet on which one we think is going to do the best critically and which one's going to do the best financially.
Yep. Do you know what the running total is of that right now?
I have not been keeping track of that because I know I was losing after the pilot. So we're going to restart it now because this is my show and I make the rules. Coming out, obviously this episode's coming out a little bit late, so one of these movies has already come out in theaters. It Chapter 2 came out on September 6th. But one of the advantages is we're kind of looking at this now from the past. We talked about it before, the horror comedy aspect of it. We can kind of see that as being prevalent here in It Chapter 2 already. I mean, you cast Bill Hader.
Yeah.
There's going to be some funny moments.
Yeah, we just we're talking to someone very close with the subject, and they have already seen It Chapter 2, and they thought it was they gave a good recommendation, especially emphasized that horror comedy. So I'm really excited to see that. I'm hoping maybe this weekend I can get a couple hours and run down to the movie house.
I mean, if you have Bill Hader in your movie and it's not somewhat funny, you're doing something wrong.
Yep.
It's not his fault.
Yep.
You're doing something wrong. Coming out this next weekend here, though, on September 13th, we got 2 movies coming out. Very separate subject matters. One of them, The Goldfinch. This one is a little bit more of a prestigious kind of mystery coming into it. Got a pretty good cast. And we'll kind of see how audiences react to that one. It's based off a book.
Yep.
Usually those can do a little bit more business.
Yep.
Usually if you got kind of a good fan base.
If you have a good fan base, depending on is the author super well known. So like that's one advantage that book fans can bring into the movie theaters.
Also coming out that same weekend, Hustlers. This is basically a Jennifer Lopez, I believe, led movie. Essentially, we'll see how things shake up. This might be one of the most. This might be the weekend I'm most curious to see how it kind of comes out.
Yep. And like with that being the second weekend with It Chapter 2, seeing if how are they holding up? Are they still making some money from there? It'll be interesting to see. Because
of the horror fan base, I wouldn't be surprised if It Chapter 2 takes number 1 for this weekend as well, and these 2 movies are just competing for second place. Yep. Either way, it could be a pretty good battle. Coming out the weekend after, on September 20th, we've got Ad Astra, Downton Abbey, and Rambo: Last Blood. 3 big movies, I think, all or at least 2 of them with pretty big fan bases. One of them's had a lot of hype for a long time. For those of you who don't know, Ad Astra was a movie I believe was supposed to come out early in the summer.
Yeah.
If not the spring, I think.
Yeah, a couple months ago is when it was originally supposed to air. So, yeah, like you said, it's going to be a busy weekend. All 3 of those movies have some sort of following by now, whether Rambo, from way back, Rambo First Blood, and Downton Abbey. I mean, who doesn't know the show Downton Abbey? I personally don't watch it.
Downton Abbey has its fan base.
Yes,
though.
it does. Yes, it does.
They're big Downton Abbeyers.
Yep.
I don't know what group they call themselves.
But I also look at it as in your little Rambo First Blood, little action adventure, little Downton Abbey drama.
Needless to say, there is something for everyone in this weekend.
You'll be able to come to some of the sci-fi, fantasy, even I would say adventure with Ad Astra. So,
rounding out the month of September, on September 27th, we got another animated movie, Abominable. I got it first.
Yeah,
I got it right first
try.
time.
That was pretty
first
good.
try.
That was good.
We had the toughest time figuring out how to pronounce that one when we were rehearsing this. But yeah, an animated movie that talks about the abominable snowman, I believe. Needs the classic story of finding its way home. I think this one will probably do pretty good. It's kind of a lone animated movie. There's not a lot of options for kids here.
Yep.
Granted, some people argue a lot of them are coming back to school, but there's always birthdays
There's
and stuff like
birthdays,
that.
weekends, you know.
So-
like this month, that's probably about the only.
It's pretty much the only
It's the only
kid-friendly
kid-friendly
thing coming
movie,
in here.
yep.
The other movie coming out that weekend is called Judy. This is actually something I hadn't heard a lot about until recently when I was researching this show. It's a biopic, another biopic. Those have been very popular these past few years, about Judy Garland. One of the things I have heard, a lot of praise from Renée Zellweger's performance, I believe, for this character. So we'll have to see. Again, that one's a little bit of a slower weekend. Maybe some people will kind of check that one out.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go and see Rambo Last Blood a second time. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see. You never know.
But we're going to try to look like we know with our bets here. We
That's
make our
right.
predictions. We do this. We kind of set this up off camera. Once we make our bets are locked in.
Yep, they're locked in.
The way we determine it is we flip a coin usually to see who gets to pick first. Whoever gets a chance to pick first can decide whether or not they want to pick the best reviewed or the best box office, whichever one they feel more confident over.
Yep.
And they have all the movies within that month to pick their bet.
Yep.
Ryan, you won the toss.
I did win the toss.
You
so
chose to pick your best reviewed first.
Yep.
What is your best reviewed bet?
I think Golden Finch is going to be the best reviewed film of this month. I watched the trailer, and just from the early buzz, I just feel that this film is going to have the strongest reaction for a positive film. I think that people are going to, I shouldn't say tear apart. I just feel that this is going to be the strongest score out of the films this month.
Very interesting pick. For my best review, I picked Downton Abbey. I'm going with this because it seems out of all these, it seems the most harmless. It seems like it's the least trying to take a risk.
Yep.
It just kind of seems like they're doing the TV show. And if the TV show was as long as it did, as long as they continue that feeling and following, obviously we mentioned the fan base before, I think this one just has the least chance that it's going to take any big dramatic risks. There's probably not going to be a huge plot twist, I would say, that's going to ruin the film. I think the following is going to support it. They're going to score it well. Critics are going to have a delightful time, and they're going to be writing their reviews with their pinkies up after watching this movie. Drinking tea, putting down the tomato scores, and that's where I think that is going to come into play.
Very good. Very good.
So next we're going to talk about our bets for best box office. Since you got the first pick for review, I got the first pick for box office then. And my pick for the best box office for the September movie month, Rambo Last Blood. People love their action movies. September doesn't add a lot of action, so to speak. People maybe are kind of thirsting after that summer.
Yep.
You know, they have a little bit of a month to settle down. Obviously, Rambo, as you mentioned, has been going on for a long time. It's, I mean, Rockies have done very good movies. The Creed movies have continued the tradition. I think Sylvester Stallone can pull off one last good Rambo movie.
Very good. Very good. And I decided to go with Abominable. Like I said, it's kind of a toss-up, but this is the only film that's aimed for kids this month. So I'm hoping the kids come out in droves. They've been doing good in school, so their parents are going to take them to a movie. And I really think, and I'm hoping, that it does. That it wins.
Unless it's a bad movie, then the parents unless the parents who like had naughty kids,
they're going to
punish them. Maybe
they're going to
bring
Downton
this
Abbey.
movie. They're going to Downton Abbey. Oh, it's a good thing you don't have Twitter, my friend. You would be torn apart.
I like that. I was nervous for Downton Abbey because it was a TV show. That's why I didn't want to pick it, because you have a huge following, and if they stray a little ways, or like you said, I don't think they're going to take, big risk. But if they do, and it's not a good one, we all remember Game of Thrones backlash.
That's true. This is very true.
It's all up in the air.
Yeah. Well, that'll do it for us here on this episode of Popcorn Bucket List. Be sure to check us out next month. We're going to recap September, everything that happened there, show the winner of our bets, and then we're going to preview the month of October. I'm kind of excited for this one. October always brings some fun ones as well.
Yep.
So for both myself and Ryan Meyerberg, we'd like to thank you for checking us out, and we hope to see you next time.